you seeing my screen, right? You also pay attention to Colleen's prayer that she asked us to release because there is no need for us to judge our little friends. So and forgive. So forgive me, but I didn't have time to really do a proper slide today. So I was just gonna be reading through my notes. And but I did put the text, like once I translate the text from Living in Spring here, so at least you can guys read through, because for me it's when someone is kind of reading a text, if I follow, I think it's easier for me to understand. At least I managed to have time to do that, but I don't have a presentation on the slide for you guys today, so I'm sorry. And so let's read the text from Living Spring, chapter 38, that say, the translation is if we knew or if I had known. So I just slightly changed that. Sorry, Colleen, when you did the little flyer today, but it's the same message, if we only knew, if I had known. So, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. So this is when Jesus has been at the cross. So then Emmanuel, Carmen tells us, if a murderer truly knew the suffering that life would one day require of them as they face the consequences as of their actions, they would rather have no arms than raise a hand against another. If a slanderer could see beyond the darkness, clouding their judgment, and glimpse the pain awaiting them when they confronted by the truth, they would choose silence over false accusation. If someone abandoned the path of goodness and could foresee the traps that darkness sets to steal their peace and joy, they would gladly embrace even the heaviest responsibilities rather than stray from what is right. If the ungrateful understood the bitterness that would one day fill their own hearts, they would never choose indifference. If the selfish could see the loneliness that inevitably follows a life lived only for oneself, they would devote themselves wholeheartedly to kindness, fellowship, and service. If the glutton recognized the harm they inflict upon their own body, hastening its decline, they would honor moderation and balance instead. If we truly understood the consequences of disregarding God's laws, we would never willingly turn away from the right path. So forgive those who hurt you. Forgive those who speak against you. For in truth, many who surrender to the influence of evil simply do not understand what they are doing it. Okay, so that's the text. It's a very profound, because then I was thinking about it, like, what can I write after that, So some of the parts is kind of same way as Emmanuel, because I could not come with something better than that, to be very honest. So forgive me, because simply I do not have the whole knowledge as Emmanuel to write something like that. But before we start that, when I was reading through, and I was thinking, can you imagine Jesus, on the cross, the pain, the suffering, all the feelings that he was going through, and thinking of him when he looked upon those that was condemning him, that mock him, that crucify him, and he say, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Jesus, I don't think we here would have the same level of forgiveness as Jesus, because trust, like, I'm speaking for myself. I condemn people for way less than that sometimes, when I'm not feeling as inspired or as enlightened by the teachings that we speak here every Tuesday. So I was really stopped to think about it. Gee, Jesus, like how you can say things like that, but it's hard. It's really hard sometimes for us to have for our mind go around and comprehend the whole depth of that love of Jesus for us. Um, and thinking about that, if you really pay attention to the words, he didn't ask for justice, he didn't ask for revenge, he didn't condemn them. Instead, he asked God to forgive them because he understood something very profound that I'm still looking at it. I'm talking for myself today. People often do wrong without fully understand the consequences of their actions. That doesn't mean that they do intentionally, you know. Sometimes it's like based on ignorance, but we do. When I say do, is like we, okay? It's like humanity, right? Not we here, but like we as human living here. We do wrong without fully understand the consequences of our actions, you know? And then Emmanuel explored that beautifully. So he invite us to imagine that what would happen if we truly see the spiritual consequences of our choices. If someone who commits violence could see the suffering that violence created, you know, not only for the person who suffered that, the victim, um, but also to themselves. Would they still choose that path? You know, if like someone before commit a crime or some violence could see in the future the consequences of the things that he had to harbor, like would that person really choose to go through their action? I bet they wouldn't, you know. Um, if someone, probably not. If someone who spread lies or speaks badly of another person could see the pain of those words could cause and the consequences that brings to our conscience, would they continue it? Most likely we will choose silence, you know, if you could see. And we know that sometimes, I know I just spoke about violence, but we know that sometimes words sometimes can be even deadly than the like action of violence, like something like hitting someone or something like that, because words can destroy even more and can sometimes carrying weights even bigger than just like hitting someone in the face. And we know that. So if a selfish person could see the loneliness that selfishness eventually creates, or if ungrateful person could see how bitter slowly grows within them, if those who live without moderation could see the harm they are causing themselves, would many of them choose differently? I would say yes. You know? So the message is simple. It's very simple, is what Emmanuel put it for us. Much of human wrongdoing comes from spiritual blindness, or we can say ignorance, you know, because as Jesus put it, we don't know what we are doing because we don't know. We don't know better. Like sometimes we do and choose to do things wrong, but like in a sense of the message today is for us to understand that sometimes many things that we come across is because we are ignorant and we are doing wrong because we are blinded and we cannot see the consequences of our actions. So for example, because people sometimes choose to do few things and they believe they're gaining something, you know, power, pleasure, recognition, revenge, I don't know, like, you know, they chase things for any reasons, but in reality they are creating suffering for themselves and for the others when we choose to do things on the wrong way without stop thinking of the consequences, because we are blind, we are spiritually blind in a sense, or we are ignorant, you know, we really not thinking through before we act. And but that doesn't mean that people are free from responsibility, okay? One thing is different from the other. It means that ignorance often walks hand in hand with our poor choices. You know, I'm sure if we knew better, we would choose better. You know, same way like if you're trying to choose between food, you have to taste, you have to go through them. And once you know how to choose better. You know, if you, yes.
I think there are some people, sometimes we know what we should do, but we can't act on it when the time is when the time comes. Like, for example, eating too much, or like fighting traffic, or anything, like some things that we do. You know that's not right, but at the heat of the moment, you just do it
Yeah.
because that's the normal. And then later on, like, oh, that was an opportunity, a missed opportunity for that.
Yeah, but then it's like you already know that, but it's still choosing to go,
Yeah.
not in a wrong way, like choose differently, but you know the consequences as well. So yeah, that's one side of it. But what we are trying, like what the text, like what I understood from the text, is more like when we choose to do few things without really thinking through the consequences. For example, when we do gossip, and then we think that's not will cause no harm, and in essence, we might. We don't know the consequence of those words, and but yeah, you're right on that. So, in that sense, Alex, what just saying the example, that doesn't mean that we are free from responsibility. So, if you eat too much, you're probably gonna get sick. Your tummy is gonna hurt. You know the consequence of that. So, it's not free from we're responsible for your choice of eating too much. Um, but yeah, it's our ignorance, the time of weakness per se, that walks hand in hand with our poor choices. And this changes the way we look at people. If you're trying to, besides those more silly things about eating too much or thing, when we go really into in depth of trying to understand actions that people choose to do, like violence, and things like that, uh, is trying to look at them as Jesus looked at the people when he is being on the cross. They didn't know what they're doing. They're ignorance. They're just ignorance. They are blind, spiritually speaking. So within that, I would say what we should, be thinking, what we should be searching. And then I was thinking, so instead of asking, how could they do such thing, how he could be so mean, how he could choose to hit someone, how he choose that action, or whatever situation you're probably thinking about it. But instead of asking, how could they do such a thing, if we change the way we ask questions and say, what are they unable to see it? You know, it might help us to change the perspective. So if we see someone doing something wrong and say, hey, why he's doing such thing, and change, like, why he's unable to see, why he's not seeing it, that makes he act like that. And I guess it could help us to try to have more kindness toward that person, and trying to embrace and understand that that person is on their journey to learn as well. But be mindful that this excusing that perspective doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it helps us to replace hatred with compassion. Okay. And also doesn't excuse from consequences. It's just for us to try to understand, other people actions, and of course us ourselves. All right. Because spiritism teach us that we are all immortal spirits in a different stage of journey. We always talk here about, our spirit, like babies, human babies, like we're all different here. We're different ages, different experience, different backgrounds. Is the same for our spirit, so we go through our experience, and we learn through few lessons on our spiritual journey through many lives. And we all know that. And other is still, when we come across with situations like that, situations that, people are doing wrong things, it's part of their journey. It's part of things that, even though they're choosing to do it, but that will have a bright side. It's going to be part of their journey, part of their learning, and they're still on their way, of discovering, of choosing better, of having the consequences of their actions, and hopefully learning from them. So some spirits already learned the value of forgiveness and some are on the way to learn it. Yes, Jax?
I would say the old and beautiful cause and effect. That's the way they learn.
Yeah, and it's not punishment from God, and we know we're aware of that. It's just the consequence of our actions. Uh, um, if we plant apples, we're gonna, get apples. If we plant orange, we're gonna get orange, and so on. But it's a beautiful lesson, and we all have our own time and journey to learn through our lessons. But what I feel is that these texts try to bring to us that kindness, that empathy, that love that Jesus was looking towards the people in front of him that were there, that accusing him of so many things, and he could see through them, because Jesus was spiritually more mature than the people in front of him, and he could see the ignorance as children, that because they didn't know what they're doing. And is that what the text is inviting us to do? If we only knew the consequences of our choices, the consequence of things that we have to go through to repair, to learn, we will most likely stop and thinking very hard before we choose few actions in our lives. But it's not to scare us or to avoid us to, keep living our lives. But it's more in a sense that every day we have the option to choose what we do, And sometimes it's not big things like as crucify someone. Jesus, thank God that's gone. But, it's simple things, simple acts. As we always talk here about gossip, white lies that we think there is no consequences. Those simple things on our day-to-day lives that sometimes we don't really put enough effort to think the consequences of those actions in our lives. So, so that's what I was thinking about the text, sometimes sometimes we tend to think just too big, and it's not. It's simple. It's simple for today, day-to-day things that we do. Anyone else has any more comments so far? No? Let me just get here my notes. And we already talked about that, and we really have to look at our brothers and sisters that is still maybe trapped by pride, anger, fear, or any others, feelings, and that their actions is based on that, but they are on their journey to learn as well. And if we're really honest, we already touched that subject, haven't we all act without fully understanding the consequences of our own actions? I think we did.
Say that again, sorry?
Haven't we act sometimes without fully understand the consequences of our own actions?
Yes.
No, because we are jumping here and talk about others, but if we are honest with ourselves, how many times we do things without really thinking through the consequences of what we're doing it?
I didn't do one. I did millions.
Maybe one every hour, who knows?
That's what teenagers are for.
So yeah, teenagers here, or teenagers on their spiritual, a journey of the evolution of our spirits, So yeah, so that's a question that I'm asking as well, sometimes we're just jumping about, people doing this, but how about us? How many times have we acted without thinking, without really realize the consequences of our actions? As I said, perhaps not in a dramatic way about killing someone, God forbid, please no, but on silly ways, and every action have a reaction and a consequence that therefore, so it is really kind of got stuck with me that maybe sometimes we spoken words that we regret. Who never, or maybe we judge some. Raise your hand if you at least did one of those things. Maybe spoke words that you regretted. Yeah. Judge someone too quickly. Oh, thank God I'm not myself. hurt someone without intended to, or fail to appreciate someone until it was too late. Looking back, many of us have probably thought, if I only have known, or if I only knew, you know? I know it was like I put those questions on a silly way, but that time, think about that time when you spoke one words that you regret, you know? If you only knew, sorry, the consequences of those words, would you do it again? I bet not. You know, when we judge someone and maybe down the track we realize that person was awesome. Maybe today's a great friend, but if you only knew, you know, that person was like, you know, to hold your judgment, you know, would you do it again? No, you know, but the bright side is we learn. So that's great. But that's silly questions is just to remind us, if we only knew the things that we done and the consequences, would we choose it again? No. But thank God we learned from those moments. All right. So in that sense, with that inner kind of reflection, is exactly what Jesus did. So see, you're acting like Jesus. So thumbs up for you. So it's in a sense because Jesus saw beyond people's mistakes. So when I ask you those questions, you saw beyond your mistakes, you know, and he saw beyond people's mistakes on that day when he's at the cross. He saw the souls that were still learning, and he responded with forgiveness. So the same way, I invite you to see on your soul and see beyond your mistakes that you did in the past, you know, see that you're still learning and respond with forgiveness towards yourself. Isn't that beautiful that we are able to act like Jesus? Because that's the goal, right? I know, like taking like what do you say in English? Guarding the proportions. How do you say that? Guardadas devidas proporções.
Yeah, I don't know.
Portuguese people, how to say that in English? Guardadas as devidas proporções.
Give it the right proportions.
I mean,
In perspective.
put in perspective, you know. I know it's Jesus and us, but if we try to bring to simple actions, it's the same. You know, of course, Jesus is way more mature than us, and you know, and for us, it's still an exercise every day to forgive ourselves, to forgive others. But it's if we practice every day, if we look with love and look beyond the error, but like looking the soul that is someone that is still learning and forgive them with all our love, without judgment, we are acting same as Jesus, you know, and that's beautiful. So with every action that we do like that, one day we're gonna be there, just same as him, you know. That's easy, and that will come up easily for us. So that's my hope. So yeah, he saw beyond people's mistake on that day. He saw there are still children learning, and he responded with forgiveness. And that's the invitation for us today. You know, when someone hurts us, forgive is not saying that what happened was acceptable. Forgiveness is choosing not to allow someone else's ignorance to fill our own hearts with resentment. And we always say that forgiveness is not actually for the person that hurt us, but it's more for ourselves, so we can release the need of control, the need of, you know, feel resentment. So, and I think that is beautiful, you know, because it's about releasing our heart of judgment, and it just find love, like feel with love instead, you know. Again, it doesn't mean that we have to accept there is no consequences, you know. Think like everyone will be accountable for what they choose to do, but then it's between them and God. It's not up to us to judge or trying to hand what do you call in English when someone goes to judge, be in front of a judge, and then they've been judged, and then they are hand like a sentence? No,
Yes.
a sentence. It's up to them and God. For us, it's just about to forgive. It's just about to release the control. It's just about to release the space in our hearts for resentment and look at them with love. As children that is still learning. Even though I know it hurts, and even though sometimes I know it's like something that is very easy to do on the spot, but it's an exercise, it's an invitation for us. So to try to put that on our everyday. And with that is actually an act of inner freedom, because then we are free. We are free of judgment. We are free of resentment. We are free of feelings that are not going to bring us anything but pain. And release that and fill our hearts with love. Because with trusting God's justice is because God's justice is perfect. If we believe in God and we know He's perfect, His justice will be perfect. And again, it's not about Him punish our brothers and sisters because they choose to do this or that. It's just about lessons that we learn and the consequences of the choices that we made. So every soul will eventually learn through experience. Some people take a path, some people take a detour, but then come back to the path. Some people needs to go through many other stops, but eventually someone's gonna find ourselves on the final destination. That is the same, that is toward God. So perhaps actually the greatest lesson today is not about other people's consequences and release them and look at them, but all actually is about ourselves, because every day we have a choice. We can choose kindness over anger, patience over impatience. I'm working on that a lot. Not too sure if it's working, but getting there one day. Understanding over judgment, generosity over selfishness. So every time we make a choice, we see a little more clearly than we did before. May we ask God not only to forgive those who do not yet know what they're doing, but also to help us to recognize the moments when we ourselves still cannot see clearly, Because the spiritual growth begins the moment we become willing to learn. So if you're willing to learn, we're going to receive help and we're going to receive guidance. And I think that's beautiful. So as I said, I could not put that better than Emmanuel, and I never will. But I think the text, for me, touched my heart in a sense that looking to myself and the choices that I make every day, and also try to look at me. Because sometimes I think sometimes ourselves, we are the words are failing me today in English. We are the harsh judge on ourselves. Is that what I'm trying to say? Oh, Jesus.
We are harshest critic.
Yes, thank you. That's what I'm trying to achieve to say. And I guess the message that Jesus said, it's great because it's beautiful. And I guess we all trying to look at their brothers and sisters with kindness and look beyond and look at their children, they're learning. But sometimes we are the harshest criticism within ourselves, and we don't forgive ourselves. We don't look at us with kindness. We don't look at us with children that are learning, and it's okay, So I guess the invitation today is to look at yourself with a bit more kindness. And every time you choose to do something, yes, stop, breathe, choose. If you have time to really think and rethink, do so. But also understand that we are children and we will get there. And be kind to yourself. Yes, with the others, yes, but especially with yourself. And I guess that's it. I can't say more than that, to be very honest. Anyone else would like to contribute tonight with any questions or any comments, any examples of times that you might have, if you only knew what would happen, you would choose wisely. I did. I ate too much this weekend and I got sick, time sick. So I knew better, but I choose to go ahead and eat too much. And I'm not being silly. I'm being honest.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, he had to get out and get me some medicine. Yeah, but in this case, I knew. I just didn't make a better.
It chose to ignore.
Yeah, I chose to ignore it. Yeah, but consequences. I had my tummy hurt, and and here I am exposing myself to you guys. So the consequences of my bad choices on the weekend. But yeah, guys, again, be kind towards others, but especially be kind towards yourself. Because if you only knew, I know this was just a silly example, and those silly examples is like, yeah, whatever, but like, yeah. But sometimes when we choose poorly and we have consequences to, to be present to ourselves, I truly believe if we only knew the consequences, we would have choose better. But again, the bright side is that help you to understand and to learn. Maybe we learn through pain, but we learn. Ideally, it's better if we learn through love, but sometimes due to our choices, the consequences and the responsibility that come with is through pain. So, but be kind to yourself. We are just children's and on a spiritual journey, and thank God we have beautiful people that surround us and to help and guide us, and we will get there. So look towards yourself, towards others, yes, but especially towards ourselves, as Jesus looked towards them, in front of them, with kindness. Forgive, because we don't know what we are doing back then when we act the way that we did. Yes, Jackson?
Yeah, there's something tricky if you think more profoundly. Sometimes you think the consequences was good from our choices. However, if we are acting on top of our egoism, yeah,
Selfishness?
our egocentrist,
Yeah.
we think that what we did had a very good outcome, but we only superficially look at and only find later that the only beneficiary was us and the others were not the beneficiaries. So again, we put ourselves in front of it. This is not a very, very easy thing to do, is give up yourself and give the way to another person. It happens a lot in work, actually, on the competition. And we do that many times. And sometimes you'll never find out that we actually did a bad choice. Good for us, not good for the others. This is just food for thought on the same thing. Okay.
No, thanks, Jackson. Anyone else would like to add something?
The one important is that if we truly understood the consequences, or I think that's have a lot to do with our inner knowledge or our path to knowledge. So that's an important thing to do the studies, or to try to get to know the path better by studying and trying to get that into our lives, so that we can understand better, and understanding better, you know what to avoid.
Yep. Colleen?
I couldn't not say thank you, Di. Always so uplifting. Yes, it is a travesty in this life when there is it is ingrained in our education, that which is good and bad, that which is well informed or that which is ignorant. We are committed to a process of judgment of ourselves and judgment of others. It is something that we pride ourselves on, to be a judge, yes, a good judge of character. So we set about judging others so easily, but in so doing, we do, and we are so often our worst, yes, our best critic. We judge ourselves harshly. But I wanted to say this because there is this great sense and heaviness of the pain body, that we feel it within ourselves because we are racked with guilt. And this is almost from the outset, that we are guilty of original sin, that we are guilty of not being perfect, that we are guilty of everything because we do not know. We are punished because we do not know. And we are continually judged by others, even hauled through the courts because we didn't put in a tax return, or because we mistakenly parked somewhere that we didn't know was the right place. This form of judgment that we have, that we base our legal system on, creates a sense of constant fear within each of us. And so we judge ourselves, and it doesn't stop. And we judge others, and it doesn't stop. And it's almost addictive. And so in this mayhem that we have created for ourselves, because we have accepted this blindly, so few of us actually say, stop. Why am I thinking this? Why do I believe this about someone? If someone takes another's life, it is the worst. And yet, if a military person takes someone's life, it's a job well done. Where is this sense of balance? We live in a world of, yes, hypocrisy and yes, double standards, triple standards, quadruple, infinite number of standards, depending on what feels comfortable at the time. This is an interesting text because it asks us to not just look at the consequences if we actually sit in judgment of others, or if we do harm unto others, or do harm unto ourselves, because the consequences of that are usually that we suffer. But if we look deeper into the text, we actually see the compassionate side of Jesus, where he says, it's okay, we're all getting it.
Yep.
And your time will come. But it is for us to release the need to sit in judgment, to go through the process of what Jesus say in the example that he had to go through because he was actually given the freedom of speech. You can't say that because you will upset some people. Yes, but it is so important that we again cleanse our lens and see the divine in all beings. And therefore find the freedom in that, because then everything falls away and we recognize that everyone is wearing learner plates. And all we need to do is to sit in compassion to assist those that are needing our assistance, but thank those who present themselves with extraordinary behavior and see how we ourselves react to that extraordinary behavior. Because in actual fact, they are probably doing it for our benefit, to show us how we still need to correct our lenses. Yes. Yes, it's brilliant to be in this constant state of Yes. Seeing how we have smudges on our glasses, cleansing them, and then see the divine. We are constantly revisiting the divine. And once we do that, yes, and practice doing that, then our lenses seem to cleanse themselves. And then the miracles start to occur. Yes, yes. It's brilliant. Thank you, Di.
No, no worries. Thank you for always contributing with the texts and the things that we present here. Thank you. Anyone else would like to say something? No? Oh yeah, so just remember, act like Jesus. Forgive because they don't know what they're doing, and forgive yourself because you didn't know. If you knew better, you would choose differently. And it's okay. As I said, we are all on a journey, and it's part of our process of learnings, and it's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Every little thing, it's gonna be all right. Baby, don't worry. That's a very good song for that text about today. So, with this happiness and like this little message of the song that just came to my mind, I would like to invite you guys to our final prayer. So if you wish to close your eyes, take a deep breath in, so we can reflect today on the words that we said, on the words that we hear about it, on the text that we read. Let's be thankful for all. And as the song say, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing, it's gonna be all right. And it will. Because it's a promise of God. This journey, it's beautiful. I know sometimes we have painful days. We have ups and downs, mountains to climb. But let's enjoy the ride. Enjoy the path. Enjoy the people that we encounter. The beauty that we see. Even the moments that is not as bright or cherished as we wish. Let's us embrace all. Because you are who you are today. Because you went through all that makes you stronger, makes you beautiful. The lessons show you so many things and help us all to get where we are. And for that, we are grateful. So thank you, God. Thank you for everything. I know that sometimes if we knew better, we would choose better. But that's okay as well, because the choices that we made brought us where we are. And that is perfect. So thank you. Let's take this lesson today for our lives and try not to judge ourselves so harshly, not judge the others as well. Let's replace that with love, compassion towards ourselves and towards the people that we encounter on an everyday. So we can act just like Jesus, with love and kindness, because we can see beyond. Let's take this peace, these moments of reflection, and move on with our lives for the next week until we're able to meet again. So be it. Amen. So thank you, guys. Thanks for this week. I hope you guys have a blessed week. A week where you can love yourself even more and forgive yourself for the bad choices that you made on the way, because it's okay. All right? It's all good. So you guys have a blessed week, and I hope to see you all next weekend, okay? Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a nice week.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.